How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and the next little chitty chat here about, well, the next girl that I fell in love with. And if anybody forgot, her name was Jill. And what can I say about Jill? I bet a lot. But we'll start off with the most obvious, glaring point. Jill, when she came into my life and we started seeing each other and started our relationship, she was the one that, to everyone else around me, made it very clear that I had a taste in women, at least when it came to the color of their hair. Everybody said she had the exact same hair color as Chelsea. I never thought it that way. I always thought she was a very beautiful strawberry blonde, but that is neither here nor there. That is simply her hair color. It wasn't who she was as a person. And Jill was a lot of fun. That relationship with her, well, it taught me a lot of things, and we're going to get into that down the line for sure. Lots of firsts with her when it comes to life and being with another human being, and I guess attempting to build a life with another human being. That being said, we were still very young when we started seeing each other. When Chelsea and I had split up, I think I was 18, 19 years old. And I didn't know any better back then. And me being me and wanting very desperately to be in a relationship and have somebody that I could start sharing my life with and building a life with. I didn't do the responsible thing back then, which when, a very important relationship comes to an end, I think it is absolutely invaluable to take time for yourself. And just, you're going through a lot of emotions after a breakup and this, that, and the other thing. And it's very hard on you, on your soul, on your mind, on your heart. It's very difficult. But when you're young and you are stubborn and you have an opportunity sort of laid out before you, it's very easy to just immediately throw yourself into that situation. And that's exactly what I did with Jill. Now, most people would say, well, that's a rebound. And I think looking back, that is partially a fair assessment. However, to me, when I hear the word rebound, it means it usually is a fling or something that doesn't last very long. And Jill and I lasted a very long time, very close to 5 years. That relationship was, oddly enough, most of my relationships were about 5 years. That's apparently my expiration date. So, well, yes, I definitely made mistakes at the beginning there. It also was very easy to fall into because Jill was just such a easy person to get along with. If Chelsea, we had the whole friend dynamic with both groups coming together. Jill was the one that was so in love with me as I was with her. She completely adjusted and she became one of the guys, and she was hanging out with us a lot. And again, as we get down the line of where our relationship went and the inner workings of all of that, it will become a little bit more apparent is exactly what I mean. But now our little our little relationship started so beautiful. We met both working our Mickey Mouse jobs at the mall here in Calgary. I was working at Taco Time and she was working at A&W when we met. I'm not 100% sure where I was working when we actually got together, but she was actually 2 years younger than me. So it was an interesting sort of thing for a young man to go through, in the sense that I had my graduation. Chelsea and I believe we broke up before her graduation. And then I was actually able to go. Did I go to Jill's with her? I can't remember. But I know that we did grad camping. Maybe that was, yeah. I think, whose grad camping was that? I'm going to have to talk to my buddy Mike. This is what happens when you start sort of trying to focus in on specific core memories from your past instead of just sort of generally remembering things. Anyways, there was a grad camping trip. Again, that taught me a lot of first things there, and we will get to that. But either way, Jill and I started seeing each other. That was our little meet cute across the food court, so to speak, working the registers at A&W and Taco Tub. Is that why I have been enjoying A&W so much lately? That wasn't planned, I promise. But no, yeah, she was just, and you know what? And to her credit, she put herself through the ringer. Maybe it wasn't hard at the time, although I imagine it would be, because I was still very much getting over Chelsea. And I think that it more often than not, it's unfair for a new partner to be helping you through a breakup, but huge props to those that can do that. I think that speaks a great deal to their character. And I really value the fact that Jill was there for me through that. I have a process of getting through things, and I still do it the fairly same way, right? I like to put sort of pen to paper, metaphorically speaking, because even back then I was still typing on a computer in order to get everything out. And Jill helped me through a lot of that, which was incredibly appreciated. And it's probably one of the reasons that made me fall so deeply in love with her. And she became my world. Our relationship, again, because it was so centered around our friends at the time, which is interesting because as the years go on, that sort of wanes for me. Not everybody. So a lot of people like their friend dynamics and whatnot and stay very close with their friends. Me, I had in my mind, I knew I wanted a family. I wanted to start a family. I wanted to find the girl at the time that would become my wife. At least it was a very fleeting thought back then. Maybe I wasn't even thinking about it actively back then. It was definitely in the back of my mind. And that's just something that I would do in every relationship I got into that ended up becoming serious. So that being said, maybe it wasn't at the forefront of my mind at the very, very beginning. And I was just enjoying having this new feeling again, right? Because every time you get into a new relationship with another human being, it's exciting, right? Regardless of what you might be going through, unrelated to relationships, or at least in my case, because of a ended relationship, it's nice to sort of mentally flip a switch, and now you've got this fresh start with this other human being. But again, it's important that you should be ready to do that, and you shouldn't really be dragging all of that baggage, not that sort of fresh baggage, into a new relationship. Oddly enough, I don't feel, really looking back at it, that negatively affected mine and Jill's relationship. I think by the time it came to its conclusion, let's say, as a nice way of putting it, there were obviously other outstanding reasons, because just as time goes by, you get to know a person, right? And back then, I was moving so fast. It wasn't about spending time getting to know somebody on a really deep and personal level at the beginning. It was more, let's just have fun, let's laugh, let's enjoy life, let's enjoy each other's company, let's enjoy the value that we bring to each other's lives. And you don't really focus on anything else. And more often than not, if you're not doing that, I think it can work against you, in the sense that if you're not talking about it, you're going to be in for a rude awakening when those things do inevitably sort of begin to crop up. Again, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here. I loved Jill very much, and she was one of the ones that's really started me sort of down my path of beginning to understand what I wanted from a human being. Interestingly enough, though, I didn't realize that until it was too late, until that relationship had sort of imploded. But again, I think at the end of the day, it wasn't because there was any sort of unappreciation of the other person. It was, again, because we were so young and we were still figuring out who we were. I sit here and say that I knew what I wanted out of a relationship. That's all well and good. You can easily pull that open and be like, yep, this is what I want. You cannot automatically apply that to every single human being. And I guess that's why in this day and age, we go through the ringer of putting ourselves through these motions with other human beings that ultimately end up really sort of causing our heart to crack and break. But I'm so many years removed from it now. I look back on it and I'm like, man, it's so funny, because she ended up with the life I wanted very early on in her life. And I always thought that was kind of interesting. I was told a lot in high school by some friends and acquaintances and whatnot that I was always a very old soul in a young body, and I really was, right? I was never the sort of, like, big thing back then in my generation was going to nightclubs and stuff, you know, going and dancing and just kicking off your shoes and letting strangers bump up against you all sweaty. It's such a good time. Not for me. I think I went to a handful of clubs my entire time, and I enjoy telling the one story. The one time I had a great time going to a nightclub was because I went with two of my best friends during the day to watch a hockey playoff game. They had this one particular club, it's not even around anymore, I believe it was called Coyotes. During the playoffs, when the Calgary Flames hockey team was in the playoffs, they opened up during the day and you could come down there and have some beers and watch the game. And that was my most enjoyable experience ever at a nightclub. And I don't even like hockey. So the reason I mentioned that is that kind of became a huge, it was a huge part of, you know, growing up back then and the dating scene and the relationship scene. And while I'm sure there were plenty of girls out there that were not into that sort of thing, this guy chose the girls that were into that. And I just should have known better at the time. But again, hindsight being 2020, I didn't realize it would bother me so much. But those are those little things that, you know, crop up. They're little tiny things. But you know, you start doing that and you start adjusting for the other person. And compromise can be good, but it can also be extremely detrimental. These are all things that I learned during my time with Jill. And she really did leave a mark on my heart, for sure. I still think in a good way. I don't, you know, when things are ending and coming to their, I don't want to say inevitable conclusions, but it does happen. Maybe that's the best way to put it. You don't feel that way. You just feel betrayed and used and whatever other words you can think of that cast a negative light on the person you were dating. And then you look back on it and you realize it was probably for the best, but I also took this, and this away from that relationship. And, you know, if you can at the very least learn from these things when they start to sort of disintegrate in front of you, I think that's a really good, important thing. But yeah, no. And I feel like I'm kind of focusing on a lot of those silly negatives right now, whereas Jill really was an amazing girlfriend at the time, and I have such fond memories of her. And like I said, she did, in fact, she didn't teach me, but together we experienced a lot of firsts. And I think that's what we will chat about next time when we really get into the meat of it, because I definitely still take away a lot of lessons from those firsts. And for those that are wondering, no, not that first, everybody just calm down. I'm talking about far more important things when it comes to learning how to navigate the world as a young man and figuring out just exactly what it is that love means and how much it can lift you up and how much it can absolutely destroy you. But anyway, that is it for now. That is the introduction to the Strawberry Blonde. Beautiful, beautiful lady that brought a lot to my life. And we will talk more about that later. And until then, just go out there, be happy, be creative, be yourselves. Most importantly, be positive. And remember, only dead fish go with the flow. And for those that are wondering about the candle, that are concerned that the van is going to catch fire, just know that if you're watching this video with the candle burning in the background, the van did not burn down. If that were to happen, you probably wouldn't know about it. Okay, bye!